NATO has declared it's extending its operation in Libya by another 3 months. The alliance chief says this decision is meant to prove to Muammar Gaddafi that the alliance is determined to fulfill the UN mandate. Let's cross live now to James Corbett. He's the editor of an independent news website. Thanks for joining us this hour. Anders Fogh Rasmussen says it's necessary to carry on the campaign to protect the people of Libya. But just today we heard accusations from Tripoli that 700 have died in NATO airstrikes. How sincere do you think the alliance is in its claims that they're just protecting civilians?
Well, I think the idea of protecting civilians by bombing civilian populations is on its face ridiculous, and in itself exposes that this is not about humanitarian intervention. And that lie has been thoroughly exposed, I think, by the fact that the initial no-fly zone turned pretty much overnight into a bombing campaign, which turned into a campaign which we were promised was not to overthrow the regime and to get Gaddafi out of there, but then was revealed in a New York Times op-ed by Obama and Sarkozy and Cameron that that was indeed the exact aim of this. And then there was the promise that there would be no ground troops involved, and now footage has just emerged in the last couple of days showing foreign, presumably British, special forces on the ground advising the Libyan so-called democratic rebels. So I think it's just been lie after lie, and I think that pretty adequately exposes the fact that this is not ultimately about humanitarian intervention.
What do you think has to happen in order for the alliance to consider its mission fulfilled in Libya?
I think that the NATO powers will not stop until Gaddafi has been unseated from power, whether that's by force or whether he actually does acquiesce in the end. I'm not sure that particularly matters. I think the inevitable end here is regime change, and I don't think anything's going to stop until that happens.
Do you think that's why the 90 extra days have been put out there? I mean, it has something got. Why do they need these days?
Well, I think that's clearly the intent of these extra days. I think it might be surprising on one end that Gaddafi has held out this long, especially given the extent of the onslaught against him and the attempts to assassinate him and the killing of his son and grandchildren and all sorts of things that have been tried against him. It's rather surprising that he's managed to hold out this long, and I think that was perhaps not foreseen in the original action that was approved by NATO.
Now, Gaddafi has said that he's ready for negotiations, but the opposition, along with NATO, has said that they don't see a peace deal possible with him in power. Do you think there's no way for him to remain in Libya?
I think that's the ultimate conclusion that we have to draw, and it's one that's exactly parallel to the situation going on in Syria right now, where I think we've seen the absolute desperate end days of Assad trying to grant amnesty to the protesters that have been arrested there, and even that is being rejected now by the international coalition that once again traces back demonstrably to Washington. And we have the spokesman of the Syrian Democracy Campaign, Ammar Abdul Hamid, who in 2006, according to leaked documents from the Bush administration, was their point man in a scheme to destabilize the 2007 Syrian legislative elections by posing as election monitors, but in fact funding and fomenting a so-called democratic uprising in that country, which we see the fruition of these days. And now Ammar Abdul Hamid is the front man for the Syrian opposition. So we see the exact same thing happening in country after country, because I think it's quite obvious at this point that there is a sort of formula for regime change that has been found, and it must be remarkably effective given the state or the complete lack of anti-war opposition in the NATO countries.
Now, South African President Zuma came out of a meeting with Gaddafi reiterating that he would not step down. At the same time, the coalition is claiming they're gaining more support as they move towards the capital. How much power do you think the Libyan leader really has right now?
One has to imagine that the writing is on the wall, if only because this, as the recent extension points out, this campaign can be continued basically until he decides to step down. So I don't see an end to this until that resolution is reached, and really I don't know what recourse he ultimately has here.
All right, James Corbett, editor of the news website, the Corbett Report. Thank you very much for your analysis.
You're welcome. Thank you.